convention coming up this weekend from the 11th to the 12th of September. 11th to the 13th, sorry, of September. This weekend will be first of its kind in the sense that we want to bring a highlight, an opportunity for churches to reignite a flame within their church communities as they see ways and use opportunities to get their churches more involved in their community and ignite flame in their communities as well. Part of it is not just about church revitalization, but a part of it is also church planting new churches in urban settings, because so many of the people in any given province or even a state lives in the urban setting. And so we want to shed light on that. And a part of that to create excitement and to create interest in our church members here in Ontario is to highlight that through some of the conversations that we've hosted. We've hosted several conversations since July, and this is our sixth or seventh conversation that we're hosting today. And we're so grateful that you've been able to join us. I am your host today, but along with me is Pastor Sargent, Theodore Sargent. He's the director for Ministries of Compassion, which covers the deaf, blind, urban disaster preparedness, as well as community services. And I'm going to have him introduce himself to you at this time.
Oh, yes, I'm Theodore Sargent, and as Scott has said, I do cover those ministries, the blind, the deaf, people with disabilities, and along with that, I also cover disaster response within the province of Ontario and community services. It is a joy to be with you this evening and to spend this moment as we have this conversation with each other.
Awesome. And so I'm going to have him offer the opening prayer, and then we'll begin follow through in introducing our guests with us today. Go ahead, Pastor Sargent.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father and our God, we give you thanks for this opportunity where we can meet together as a group of individuals who love you and have been serving you, where we can have a conversation about what you have been doing with us, through us, and for us. We thank you for our guests this evening, and we ask that you would be with them as they share with us what you have done through them over the years. Grant that you will take control of this meeting, and may your spirit guide. And at the end, Lord, may we all come to the conclusion that you are still active in leading ministries across not only this province, but across the world. And we are just happy and privileged to be a part of that. Be with the host as he leads and guides, we ask. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Theo. So the purpose of the conversations that we've been hosting is to have a space to interview pastors and lay leaders who are in the community doing some really powerful and creative work in outreach, to learn from their knowledge and experiences, but also to inspire our members and churches towards relevant ministry to the communities in which they're located. And so without further ado, we want to introduce our great friends over there in Hamilton who are turning the world upside down. The first is the senior pastor, Pastor Francis. Go ahead and say a little something about yourself, and then we'll have Benton Lowe to say something about himself as well.
Hey everyone, so glad to be here with you this evening. I don't know if we're turning the world upside down, but my life is definitely getting turned upside down with ministry, and it's just been a joy. Looking forward to spending some time with you and hopefully inspiring you to understand that ministry goes beyond the pew.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Hey there, everyone. My name is Pastor Benton Lowe, and I'm the Community Services Coordinator at Really Living. And yeah, as you said, we're trying to flip the world upside down. I think it was already flipped on us in March, but I think we're trying to flip it back so that it's livable for people again. And we're trying to do that through the different things that we do at our church, bring people and basically creating community again.
Awesome.
Very
Awesome.
good.
Well, we're happy that you're a part of our conversation today, and we're looking forward to gleaning so much from your experiences. I know that it's just going to be 1 hour and we won't get all of the information, but at least we can take a stab at it today. So the first question that we have for you this afternoon is, how did Really Living start? How did Really Living start?
Yeah, I guess we should start at the beginning, shouldn't we, John? It was a vision of the previous pastor, Pastor Dan Linrud, who planted this church. He was the pastor of the Mountain Church, and he really wanted to do something a little bit different. And he wanted to work with people from his church who were willing to do something different. And this is going to be a theme, I think, throughout this conversation this evening, is that in order for us, I'm assuming I'm speaking to a lot of Seventh-day Adventists here, and if there are those of you who aren't Seventh-day Adventists joining us today, then welcome. We're glad you're here. But I think that this is the key, is to really understand that if we want to reach out to the community and to be a center of influence, we have to be willing to think outside the box. So that was the vision of the man and his team at the time. I think it was 14 people, and they left their church and they came here, and it all started in a Korean church where they met. In a Korean church, they rented, and then we moved on to renting from Harmony Baptist Church here in Hamilton. And 2 years after they did that, I came on board. I've been here for 11 years as the senior pastor. And then we've just moved into our building, a new building, 1 year ago. And I guess I'll probably talk about that a little later.
Okay, very good. Yes, I recognize, Pastor, that when we have new initiatives like these, change is never easy at best, right? And I suspect that there may have been a lot of obstacles that were in the way to move from Hamilton Mountain to this facility. What are some of those difficulties that were encountered to get things up and running?
That's a very good question. And I must say this. First and foremost, I think that every church in our communities reach out to people in one way or another.
Right.
I don't think there's one church who doesn't do anything. So all of those of you who are watching us now or will watch us later, if there's one little piece of wisdom that I can share with all of you, it's not so much how we reach out to the community, but it's more like in different ways, like feeding the homeless or doing a no change for single parents or doing those things. I think it's the mindset that we have when we do it. I think that's what needs to change.
Right.
And so the greater obstacles that we faced here at Really Living, and it was for people to understand the mindset they need to have when you reach out to someone.
Right.
I think that as a default, we often just want to, for lack of a better word, bring them to the baptismal waters quickly. And we have to recognize that when we meet the needs of people, we have to meet their needs.
Yes.
The felt needs, the needs that they have, before we can ever help them to recognize that they have a need for Jesus Christ.
Right.
And so no matter what you do, you will have to have that mindset. I'm a golfer, and so one of the things that I've learned as I golf is that I have 12 clubs in my bag. They all have to be swung the same way, but yet each one will take you to a different distance.
Right.
And so I think that that's the same thing that we have to understand when we do ministry out in the community, is that we have to have the same mindset when we may approach it. We may reach different distances with the different programs that we have. And so that would be, I think, the biggest difficulty. Of course, one that everybody's going to agree with is finances, right?
Mhm.
But I really think that a lot of times that's something that we use as an excuse for not doing the things that we need to do. And so I think that finances, when you have a group of individuals who love Jesus Christ so much that they love other people like Jesus Christ did,
Right.
the money will come.
Yes.
Where there's a
Very
will,
good.
there's a way kind of idea.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good. Yes.
Very good. So, where did you get your name from? I mean, I've always been curious to the name. I mean, I know at one point it was something else and it was changed.
Living Word Christian Fellowship is what it was when I first came. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Bent and jump in if you want to. These are questions that were, I guess, things that happened before you came to join us. But yeah, I think Living Word Christian Fellowship is a good name. Was a good name. But I think it means a lot to Christians. You speak to anybody who doesn't have a connotation of God, and they won't know what Living Word means.
Right.
So we felt like we needed to name ourselves something that is relevant to everyone. Whether you're a Christian or not, whether you're an immigrant or a local person, whether you're rich or poor, everybody wants to really live. So what we did, Pastor Scott, is, and this was, Pastor Sargent, was definitely one of the difficulties that we had. Sorry, motion sensor lights. And there we go. One of the difficulties we have was to do a name change, because again, it's a change, right?
Right.
And one of the difficulties we had was, to kind of get away a little bit from the logo and from the nomenclature that we're used to, Seventh-day Adventist Church. So we actually call our building the Really Living Center. And then inside the center, the Really Living Seventh-day Adventist Church meets.
Right.
And so whenever we invite somebody to a program like a volleyball game, we're not going to invite them to the Really Living Seventh-day Adventist Church. We're going to invite them to the Really Living Center, because it's less threatening for people to come when they're coming to a center. And then they get introduced to Christian people and get to see how we live, and then maybe somewhere down the road there can be an opening for something a little bit more. So we really wanted to be mindful, Pastor Scott, of what would resonate with everyone.
Right.
And we felt like Living Word Christian Fellowship only resonates with a very small group of people.
Okay.
And I think that if I can just add, Pastor Francis, I think that's the strength of how the church, and then as churches should work, is that it's not just our name, but in all things that we do, we want to resonate with our community, not just our members, but our community. And so it's when we go through anything, when we meet at our board, when we meet in different groups to discuss perhaps different events that we might put on, we have to think, and sometimes we have to break a mentality that's been hard, that we've built for ourselves, that, well, we should actually do it this way because people won't get it. Christians might, but the vast majority of the community will not. So we always have to be thinking of how will the community receive this? How will they be able to interact with it? And I think from the name to everything that we do, this is a huge driving force. We think of the community first.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think that with a name change, there would be some change in attitudes, I presume, and I suspect that contributed to the survival of really living, because now you're able to actually attract a wider influence to the space, rather than putting a qualifying word that limits who can come and who doesn't come. Yeah. There's a question that deals with, because Pastor Lowe is the community services coordinator, right? And there's a community services question coming from the chat that says, good follow-up how did they know the needs of their community, and where did they get the information from?
Mhm.
So could you?
Well, I think technically this has been happening even before I've started to work at Really Living and minister here. But in all things, and I can speak to what I've personally witnessed and also done,
Mhm,
is through events that are done already.
mhm,
We use these events to help gauge, and we analyze, who is coming to these events, who's interacting with us when we put them on. Most events that we might put on, it's open to the community, and for purposes not to we don't it's not that we don't want to draw other Christians or other Adventists, but oftentimes we do try to make our events, for they are kind of first come first serve, but they for the community. So we encourage our members to hold out a bit. There might be some space later on, but let people in the community get a chance. Otherwise, it could be filled up with just people from the church. But if I can use a good example, and this was more of a recent example, but we've done this approach in the past with all different things, and we had our grand opening, and technically this is an event that obviously would draw a lot of people, but we actually we did like a family day on the Sunday. So we had our grand opening of the Really Living Center on the Sabbath, as a kind of more for the church members, and then for the community, we had it on Sunday. So we had bouncy castles inside, we had food trucks, we had different people, and we had a lot of our members working, not necessarily to be a part of the fun, but to be a part, just to be a help, and wherever people might have questions, they're answering questions about the building, giving people tours, and we use this day to better understand who is around us, who's coming in, who's in close proximity to us, and we discovered that families. It might seem perhaps obvious, but we noticed that there's certain demographic of families, certain age of families that are in our surrounding area, and knowing this information, again, getting this really important information, we gear our community events to that, and we create events that will fit that. So going along with our mission, we look at what we want to do, and if it doesn't fall into that scope of reaching the people around us, then sometimes we just don't do it. It's not that we don't want to shoot down ideas, but we want to make sure that we're fitting with our mission. We want to make sure that we're fitting with what will work, and who's around us. And we've discovered that families is a huge thing that we can definitely work with.
Awesome. And based on that, go ahead, Pastor.
Just because I think this is key. We have done some of the traditional things, Pastor Sargent,
right,
that are going door to door and filling out, getting people, asking them if which of these programs would you be interested in? I'm sure a lot of churches have done that. And you have depression recovery, you have a cooking school, and all these different things. Right. And I've done it in previous church, because the previous church that I was a pastor of back in British Columbia, I was in the same role that Benton is now. I was the outreach coordinator, and I did that for 6 years there before I came here. Right. And so, we did those surveys, and you know what happens? People don't come to these things. They will fill it out, and then you'll get a follow-up list, and then you'll get a community alert list. We have in our church what's called a community alert list. It's a list of names of people who have come to different events, or who may have shown an interest in an event through a survey, and then we'll send them out an email saying, hey, we're offering depression recovery, or we're doing an arts class where people are learning to paint. And so we've done that as well. And so what seems to be working the most is that we have people in our church with certain passions. And then we empower them with
Okay.
to administer this in the community. And like Benton said, which is key, is that we do not allow these things to be filled with Adventists.
Mm-hmm.
We make sure that only half of that class, whether it's an art class, whether it's we were supposed to do a cardio boxing class with someone who was just going to be baptized this weekend, and he's going to be baptized this weekend, and he does kickboxing and cardio boxing, so he offered the class, and he can only have 8 people. So of course we had a lineup of Adventists who want to be part of that, but we said no, only 4. And the reason why it's important to have Adventists there is because they can connect with the people in the class. They can build friendships, and it can go on from there. So it's important to have some of our members there, but they have to understand that their mindset, they're not there to consume. They're there to connect and give people an example of what a Christian is like. And so, the question is, how did they know the needs of their community, and where did they get information from? Well, to be quite honest, we are trying to do things that people want to be part of.
Right.
We do a cooking school, and we do it in a way that's attractive, where people get to come on site and cook themselves along with someone else, and we do things that people need, oil changes and things that people need. We do a Christmas program, and then we're doing a kickboxing one, and we did a soccer class. We have a rock climbing wall that we open up to the community. See, these are things that people want. We don't even need to go ask door to door. This is what they want. And so I think this is what we need to be doing. If there's a mental health issue, and you have somebody in your church that has a gift in that area, then empower them. And now we have someone in our church, and we're empowering them to do that. And so I think that's more important. Use what you have instead of trying to find somebody to fill a need that you may not have anybody to fill that need. Use what you have.
That's right. Yeah, very good. I'm just curious to know, are you able to ascertain how widely away from your church are those folks coming in to access the facilities that you have and the programs you're offering?
Not very far. They're not coming from very far. People don't travel very far.
Okay.
Except for, it's interesting, for the rock climbing wall, in the last night that it was open before COVID, we had over 30 people here, all from the community.
Right.
All from the community coming to use the rock climbing wall. And these people were telling me, they were saying, we drive all the way to Guelph from my 8-year-old child to do rock climbing, and it's going to cost me $30 for him to rock climb and another $5 in gas. I can come here, and it's only taking me 5 minutes, and it's costing me $2.
Okay.
And so I think that for certain things, people will travel, but for the most part, people won't go very far. So most of the people who come to our church are within a 30-kilometer radius.
Right. Very good.
So you're definitely being salt and light right in your immediate community, right around the church's community. That's a powerful thing.
Sure.
As you look around in terms of the ministry that you're doing, we talked about how you were able to glean what those needs are. What would you say are the top 3 needs that you see in that local community?
I would say one of them is I know it sounds broad, but we've discovered this to be a need is support for single parents.
Awesome.
And I think just families in general, but we've support. So I think, and as a parent, for any parents out there, what you have need of if your kids are in school, programs for after school, programs that teach, that can perhaps help their kids with reading, programs that can, give them perhaps what is hard to get, or is expensive, or is distant, or not readily available in the area. Yeah.
Another thing too, which I think is related to families, it's just a place for their children to do something fun. When we did the family fun day, we were impressed. And so along with that need, John, would be our immigrants.
Mhm.
See, a lot of our immigrants come, especially in Hamilton, we have a lot. I'm sure in Toronto it's the same. And so they come here and they barely have enough to eat. They
Mhm.
barely have enough to provide for their families.
Right.
And some of them are taking classes to learn English and are getting some courses on how to adapt to this new country.
Mhm.
But when we opened up for a family fun day, which is free, full of inflatables, food trucks,
Mhm.
face painting. We had a movie that was playing in the church.
Okay.
We
Wow.
watched the movie, and we were flooded. We had over 1,000 people in 4 hours.
Mm.
And they were all families. A lot of them were immigrants, people from different denominations, people from different faiths.
Mhm.
We had a lot of Muslims that came through. And
Mhm.
the beautiful thing is if you can make your church presentable and user friendly, people walk through your church. Oh,
Mhm.
we showed them our children's ministry. Oh, wow, you do this from what time to what time? And so
Mhm.
all of a sudden they're getting exposed to other things that we do that they can take advantage of. And so people came in, and they're a lot of immigrants, because this was free entertainment for their children.
Mhm.
The children just loved it. It was, I mean, yeah, they loved it.
You know what they're saying every week, right? Mommy, Daddy, can we go back to that place that we went to, the Really Living Center?
That's right.
Awesome.
Sure.
I think I think an important thing also with how we're doing things, and it's something that we're discovering as well. Um, we know, but it's not necessarily the easiest to implement on a membership basis. Where we need to inspire our members and encourage, but is to be able to do things uh, just because we love people.
Mhm.
And I think this needs to be shouted from the top, coming from leadership and trickling down, because I think oftentimes we can actually do things and put on events that will with the intention of hoping that they will bite for something else. Um, and we do that, but putting on events because we love people will cause us to, even if they don't,
Mhm.
we will do it anyways.
Mhm.
And that authenticity, that genuineness, people will read and people will see.
Mhm.
And so even just doing things because it will help somebody or it will make someone's day. These are the type of things that we're wanting to shift into and to do, because we understand that these are what's going to build lasting things. People that realize that they are loved just because.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what we're trying to do with everything that we do at Really Living.
Right. Very good.
Awesome.
Excellent. And I suspect as you look at the community, you have more long range plans, I'm sure, for the community. And based on your love, I'll ask you a double-edged question. One is, as you had to make some kind of adjustment during the COVID-19 situation to the survey committee, what adjustment you were able to make? And for the future, as you think of the wider community, you are going to include people who have different abilities, like disabled or deaf or blind. Is there any such thinking for down the road, not now, down the road, to involve them as part of Really Living?
Um, we're very organic,
Mhm.
and so we really want to make sure that if we are going to meet a need, there is somebody to lead that ministry.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't say that yes, we have something planned in the future for those with disabilities.
Right.
If we have someone who has a passion for people with disability, or someone with a disability that wishes to begin a ministry, we will be all behind that person to make that happen. So the future for us is this, and Benton mentioned that earlier, and I think it's key. Um, we have a mission and a vision, and everything that we do has to be filtered through that. A church that doesn't have a mission and a vision, they will be all over the place. They're going to try to do everything for everyone, and they're never going to end up doing anything well.
Mhm.
And so, and there are a lot of missions out there too, and visions that and pastors and churches have to be trained on how to write those, because you can have a mission like to love people and to love God. Well, that's very
open-ended.
very open. So somebody can come up to you and say, well, I want to do, I want us to do a sermon series on how bad certain people are. And in that way, we will love God, and we will, people can basically do anything under that umbrella. So we have a mission statement that says, embracing our community with Adventist message of hope and wholeness.
Right.
And so everything that we do has to incorporate embracing our community.
Right.
And our vision is we will be a Christ-focused center for teaching and healing of mind, body, and soul.
Right.
So everything that we do has to fit with, and this is who we want to be for teaching and healing of mind, body, and soul. And so, we're open to whatever will fit within those parameters. And anybody who becomes a member of our church also has to understand that this is who we are and this is where we're going as a church. And they have to understand the mission, and they have to be willing to be part of it. And so far, so good.
Good.
If I may just add just one quick thing, and I think that's the one thing I like is, in the start of our mission, it says to embrace our community. So, right off the bat, when people approach the board or Pastor Francis or myself about, hey, I have this idea to start this or that, it gets filtered through our mission. I know this was kind of said already, but it gets filtered through. So, some people won't even come to us when they start to understand the mission and vision of the church. Some people won't even come to us when they think, they said, oh no, it doesn't, it's not a bad idea, but I need to think about it more because it doesn't quite go with it, but I can make it that way. So sometimes, as our church starts to think that way, everything gets filtered through that mission as it should.
Very good.
And that has to do with the mindset. I got to speak on this before we move on to something else. It's just, I've read a little book, and I want to put it up on the screen for people to see. It's entitled "Everyone Welcome" by Roger Hernandez. And it says, and there's a little red dot about it, says certain restrictions apply.
Yes.
And there's a reason for him putting that there. And the fact is that we say that we love people. We say that we love Jesus, but when we do our church service, when we gather together to worship, we are, in most cases, totally careless about how non-Christians experience that experience with us. And so if you don't understand the Adventist culture, if you don't understand Christianity, you will come to some of our churches and you'll never want to come back. Why? Because the mindset of our members is, how can I make sure that I feel comfortable?
Right.
And in order for me to feel comfortable, I will send a text to the pastor saying, you didn't have enough LNG white quotes in your sermon, or you didn't, you're not wearing the right clothes, or you're not doing this, or you need to tell people happy Sabbath when they come into church. No, we don't tell them happy Sabbath because they don't know what Sabbath is. We say welcome. And so we need, and this book that is on the screen right now is something that every church and every pastor should read, because it totally demystifies the fact that we need to promote who we are as Seventh-day Adventists for the sake of because it actually doesn't work. And people will come in and they will not know what we're doing. They will not understand why we do it. And so, for example, when I preach a sermon and I use a quote from Ellen G. White, I introduce who she is every single time.
You don't make an assumption.
I don't. I can't. Because in my church, at least 10% of the people are non-Adventists every Sabbath.
Mhm.
And so I need to consider them, and everything that we do in our church is for them.
Right.
It's for them.
Mhm.
All the church service, the prayer meetings, everything is for them. And so we always consider them first before considering ourselves.
Mhm.
I think that's the key. That's the mindset. When you start to have that mindset, so now when you have a oil change for single moms, for example, I have members who come up to me at the beginning and saying, we need to give them tracts. We need to give them a step to Christ. I said, no, we're changing their oil.
Mhm.
Let's build some friendships. Let's not be too fast. And so, but now because of the mindset is changing, because people are starting to understand that we need to speak their language, we need to meet their needs first. Nobody's approaching me now with that. I even had a church member who told me that if he can't give out a tract, he's not going to come to the ministry. I said, fine, don't come. And he was one of the key players in that ministry. But then that person calls me back later and says, I think I maybe need to change my mind. Maybe I'm going too fast. And so we just need to stick to our mission statement, which is embracing our community with the Adventist message of hope and wholeness.
Right.
Not with the Adventist message of 2,300 days or Revelation, of hope and wholeness. And that includes that when it's the right time to do it.
Right. Okay. I feel like Really Living has had an unfair advantage over most other Adventist churches who didn't start with that kind of intentionality. What would you say, and what would you say would be some ways that the churches in today's culture, where churches are not even within the communities where most people live, for example, many of our churches are very commuter based. And of course, as you mentioned just a few moments ago, when we put on a program or an event or create initiatives, it has to please us first before we begin thinking that it pleases others out there. How do we move this huge ship, if you will, of many of our churches? I would say the majority of our churches, because that's really the basis upon which we're meeting today, to have these discussions about change, how people change the way they think, how people change the way their attitude, and how they change the way they approach ministry. How do we shift the churches who didn't have your advantage of intentionality to start, living word fellowship? How do we do that? How does that happen? Is there ways to do that? Do you see some of that change management from the Lily of the Valley Church that you're a pastor of as well? Share with us.
So you're
And I
basically
might have used the wrong name of the church. I know it has something to do with Valley.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Really living. I guess what you're basically asking me is, Pastor Francis, if you were to be transferred to another church 2 months down the road, where would you start? So the first thing that I would do would be to do mission and vision casting with the church board. And start, asking them the question, why do we exist? This whole COVID-19 has really opened my eyes. We don't have our buildings. Most churches are not meeting in their buildings, but yet most of our members are still growing spiritually. They listen to a sermon online. They'll have Zoom Sabbath school. They will have the children's Sabbath school, and they don't even go to a building. So at the end of the day, when we go back to our buildings, we need to start to understand that those buildings are not for us. They're for the community. The way we set up our buildings need to be for the community. And so I think that my first thing would be to do a vision casting with the members and to see where they're at. What is the most valuable thing to them? What's more important to them? And I can tell you that even in this church, from the first day that I came into this church 11 years ago and to today, there are still members who complain that we're not doing enough for us. I hear it all the time. Well, what about us? What about our children? What about this? What about that? And so, but the key is that once you've got your mission in place and you understand where you're going as a church, and I'm hoping that the mission statement would include community, right? would be specific, a specific goal that you have. Even if you're going to be, okay, we want to reach out to the young professionals and give them hope in their lives. And that's what you do. That's what you do as a church. And you don't bifurcate from that. That's what you do. And so setting a mission and a vision statement and holding each other accountable to that, I think is the first place to start. And then after that, John, it's for the pastors to just stand for that mission and that vision. Because what's going to happen is when you start to have a church that starts to thrive in reaching out to the community, you're going to have other Adventists who are going to want to join your church. And then they need to understand the mission and vision. They need to be honed in and understand where you're at. So I think that's got to be the first thing.
It's time to do some more clapping there.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. What
Clap
Pastor
on,
Chris
clap
said
off.
was sure on point. For like established churches, and I can only speak of my own experience, like most, but I've seen nowhere else, and I truly believe it works because I've seen it work, and I think that with the concept of small groups, and when we hear this word small groups, some people might get like, not this again, or maybe they haven't experienced it perhaps in the right way, or they've been burned in a form of it. I'm not too sure, but at least I can only speak about how we do it at Really Living. At Really Living, lots of things happen within that small group that incubates and starts like creativity of how people will serve and how people will do things in the community. So lots of things start in the small group, and the small groups are established. I think we've done it many different ways. It's been happening way before I came to the church. It's in fact the church, we could say, was even established through like cell groups, small groups. Pastor friends can speak more to that, but I know that small groups, lots of things happen in these small groups when people get together. They're grouping. We can group in different ways, but sometimes we've grouped in terms of location of all of Hamilton. We've grouped in those locations, so people get together, and then with guidance from the leaders of small groups and Pastor Francis. We've studied things. We've studied the book that was up there, Everyone Welcome. We've studied that book together so that we have a central thing that we're talking about. We're having discussion. We could equate it to if people really enjoy Sabbath school and discussion in Sabbath school. Well, we have that discussion during the week, and I think that's another thing that's important too. Is that helps in the growth of a church is. You talked about a ship leaving. Well, that captain doesn't want to leave that ship without a crew, and that ship needs a crew. And I think through small groups, you can help establish vision, help maintain vision, and all that. I really believe that small groups in our church has a strong role and can really stimulate growth in our members too, not just for certain causes, but our members will grow because we see each other more than just Sabbath, more than just Saturday.
Right.
I think there's something there personally,
And that also fits with our mission statement, because we don't do small groups just for us.
Mm-hmm.
We invite people to the community, and not only that, but the concept of small groups is hands, head, and heart. So you need to think, you need to feel, and you need to do. And so at the end of the small group session, we have 3 sessions a year. At the end of a small group session, the small groups are challenged to do an act of kindness in the community. And so now they work together, and then we have 2 outreach programs that have been established in the church now that started out of small groups who did that community program, and now it's becoming a church community program. So, again, it just can't be something for us. I think that's where the churches are going wrong, is that we do small groups for us. Everything has to be filtered through out there.
Right. Mhm.
Awesome. Very good steps. Pastor Sargent, go ahead.
Yes, excellent. Now, at least based on what I gather from what you just said, it seems as though empowering the members to act is a big part of your success. Do you agree with that? Okay, and so you've had a certain amount of success, but we are never we never I should rephrase that. We should never be satisfied with past success. We want to have more and more as we go forward. And so the question I'd like you to consider is, what else can your church do to continue the success that you've had, and to maybe even allow it to be bigger than it really is right now?
Oh, I guess if I knew the answer to that question, would be bigger already.
Yeah.
I,
I think we're not perfect. I'll let you answer this, Francis, but I would say that we're not perfect in everything that we do. And we're in all the things that we've kind of talked about. We're definitely trying to master those things or just get better at them. So I think as we if I can say perfect, as we perfect the things that we've shared, that's one way that we are growing. But yeah, Pastor Francis.
how many times does somebody have to see a commercial in order to buy the product? Right, the statistics show anywhere between 5 to 12 times, or whatever the statistic is, but it's more than once. And so what we are trying to do, and what I think we have been successful in doing, and had it not been for COVID, we by January and February, we had steadily increased our attendance by 25%.
Excellent.
In church, and that's people who have been exposed to us through a seniors walking club, walking school, through the rock climbing wall, through the family fun days, and they just come and check us out. And yes, some people come once and they don't come back. But it's not necessarily because they didn't like what they experienced, because when you talk to them and they said, yeah, I want to come back, but they're just not there spiritually yet. But the point is that the more people get exposed to what we do, get exposed to us, and if we live like Christ and we have a Christ-like mind, then eventually they will transition and come to something more serious in our life. So I want us to continue to do things for the community that they enjoy, some of the needs they have, and the more they get exposed to us. Like, for example, we were supposed to do the showing of Screenagers. I don't know if you know what that is, but that's a movie that helps parents understand the damage that the screen can do to their children. And so we had that scheduled. We had it on our sign outside, and we were about to show it to the community. And so get them to come in and watch a movie. Give them some popcorn, and get them to ask questions about who you are and where you're at. So for me, it would be to continue to expose our building and our people to the community in different ways.
Let's we're almost done, but this is a big question relating to finances. What has been your what are some of the financial strategies you use? You offer most, if not all, of these initiatives free, which is an awesome thing. So I'm sure, for your treasury or your finance committee, I'm sure they, either you have some great resources out there, or you have some creative approaches. Share with us what some of those approaches are that churches who would like to turn their own ship could employ to create these moments that brings contact to the community.
Right.
One of the things I taught Benton, and I really didn't have to teach him that because I think he already knew that, being up in Nunavut for 4 years. But, the community wants to serve their community. So ask them to give you things for the community. Like, for example, we do the oil change for single moms, for single parents. We're going to do one on September 27th. It would be easy for us to spend the $500 and go buy the filters ourselves and go buy the oil ourselves. I said, Benton, no. Find people who will donate these things to us. And he has a gift. He really does. I mean, he's in that position for a reason. He has a gift of connecting with people in the community. He knows how to speak to people. And so he got both of those things donated. And,
Absolutely.
and so, you know, you want to offer a movie in the community, get somebody to donate the movie, get somebody to donate the popcorn, get somebody to donate. And the key to that, Pastor Scott, is that when you get people to donate things, now you're connecting with these people. We have Goodness Me, who donates to our serving hands that we serve to homeless people downtown. We have somebody who donated all of the material for the cardio boxing class. We have somebody who donated walking sticks for the seniors walking club. And so you network with people around, and they will donate to something that benefits people in the community. They just won't donate to something that benefits your church.
So
But they will
donate to partner.
benefits the community. So if you do community things and you ask for people to donate, they'll give to you. So that's one way to financially help yourself. And yes, we have been blessed with finances that are a little bit beyond what some other churches have, but we have been very good stewards of those funds, so that we are able to minimize the cost of people who come and benefit from some of our outreach. But we also believe that in certain outreaches, like the depression recovery and some of those, or the rock climbing wall, even the basketball. So we had the local bus guys. We have a bus transfer here, and then asked to use our gym. Said, okay, well, we're going to charge you, and then we get some of our guys to come play with them. I think you need to charge a little bit for people to associate a value to what they're getting. And so, but we didn't serve food for the family fun days, but we invited food trucks, and the food trucks made tons of money. And they're like, please invite us when you come back. So we don't have to worry about food. We don't have to worry about all the, whatever called the food safe and all that stuff. They take care of that, and then people bought their stuff. And so, I think that there's a lot of ways for people to financially maneuver around some of the expenses. And of course, just the generosity of the members. When people start believing in the mission, they start giving towards it as well.
All right.
This is an awesome blueprint. Thank you so
We
much.
had a lady who passed away several years ago, and in her will, she donated $5,000 to community outreach of our church because she was so passionate about it. Right? So people become passionate about what you do, and they see the impact it's having on people because they're going to that ministry and their ministry to people. So then when we ask for money, people will put $1,000 towards. People would give $100 towards that because they're part of it. They see the changes. They see the impact. They become passionate.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Excellent. Yes, thanks you. Just one final thought, because I have a question, because I know our time is almost spent. In most churches, there's that 80-20 relationship where 20% of the people do 80% of the work, right? I'm wondering, where does really living fit into on that spectrum?
Yeah.
How do you see?
We have the same thing, 80-20 as well. We have 80% involved and 20% not involved.
Oh, so you flipped on the other end.
It's true. It's really true. People are passionate, and when you have a lot of people involved in ministry, and when you preach about it from the front. I mean, and I were preparing a sermon series in 2 weeks from now, and we're going to be casting the vision again. We're casting the vision. We're casting the vision on community outreach. We're casting the vision on small groups. So September 19 and 26, we're casting the vision, and then we're starting a small group, and then he's just going to do his sermon just before the oil change for single parents. He's got so many people who want to help. He has to refuse some people because he doesn't have enough work for everybody. And so it becomes a mindset, and it becomes a culture in the church. We have to stop worrying too much about Adventisms in our church and start worrying about the community. And before you know it, we had two families who transferred to our church, and I asked them why. Because we want to reach out to our community the way you do.
Okay.
So people believe in that passion, and they do. So it wasn't like that at the beginning, Pastor Sargent, but it is that way now. So you go through some growing pains, but now people just want to be part.
Okay. Pastor Lowe?
Yeah, I just wanted to say this it was kind of in terms of the other question. I know it was talking about finances, but I just was inspired that it came to my mind that in terms of also building, going forward with your church, and I think churches are normally thinking of how they can reach out to people. And I think as you build friendships, as you have, hopefully, people watching this and listening to this, you have friends. Hopefully you have friends also outside of the church. We have found that many of our volunteers, obviously we have many people in the church that volunteer, but we found that we have people that want to serve because they're friends of members and they just want to, they like what we're doing. We had met much of our help during COVID, our COVID-19 response. We did what we called bags of hope, where we were giving bags. People would register on our website, and they would, and then we would bring bags with basic grocery necessities, $20 worth. We were giving it to families that would register that were in need. And we found that a lot of our helpers would be people from the community that saw what we were doing. They were friends of perhaps of our members, some not. Some people received a bag and said, I want to help with this too. And so, buy-in comes from people who would just see that you're doing, and sometimes that's where your partnerships are.
And we've tried to bring some of those people to the church.
Yes.
To get them to come to church.
Mm-hmm.
But they wouldn't come. But then you start feeding the homeless, and they all show up in our church, pick up bags, and distribute them to the community.
Excellent.
Tells us something about what people want out of a church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very well.
Very good. Mm-hmm.
Pastor Martin Perez, he has a church in Hamilton, or used to have one used to have one in Hamilton. His question is, could you coach churches that want to move in this direction but don't know how?
Sure. I'd be happy to go to a church and sit down with the board and share this information with them. And any church who would be willing to be coached on this and listen to something that may shock their ears a little bit, but that they need to hear, by all means, man. We would love to multiply this model.
Awesome.
Excellent. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Yes.
Well, folks, those of you who are listening out there, you
I
want
have my personal number, Martin, so you can call me.
to. He has your number, Reggie. Now, before we close, wanted to hear from you a couple of stories, maybe one from you and one from Benton. And by the way, I think Benton was Pastor Sargent. He was your church member at one point.
Yeah, I baptized him. He's my son. I baptized him.
Maybe you got some short pants stories that you could tell us about when he was a kid.
Oh,
Troublesome around the church, I'm sure.
The thing is, I'll tell him, if he doesn't go into my garden, I wouldn't go into his.
So tell us, give us some stories. You mentioned the lady who, in her will, before she passed on, put in her will that she would like for the church to benefit from her financial blessings that God has blessed her with. But tell us some more stories, a couple of more stories, short stories, not too long, of people you have seen come through and whose lives have been changed. Because your ministry is largely no strings attached, and that's the mantra of community services. But people, because they've seen, they've been touched, they've been inspired. You know what? I want to come to know who this Jesus is that is inspiring and empowering you to do this ministry. Tell us some stories, one or two stories.
I have one right now. His name is Ben. Ben was a gentleman who did some construction in one of our members' homes. She befriended this person because this person in my church is so good at befriending anyone. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, we began another ministry in our church that I think is incredibly successful. It's called Mission World. And we organize, before COVID, we were doing 2 mission trips a year outside into different parts of the world. And I tell you, there's a lot of affluent non-Christian people who want to do something like that. Ben was one of those. We've tried to invite him to church. We shared the gospel with him, and it just, but then when it came to Mission World, all of a sudden he goes on a mission trip. He went to something like that. He set foot in our church maybe once or twice, but he goes on a mission trip. He bought hook, line, and sinker to what we're trying to do as a church. The next mission trip, he organizes a barbecue at his house before the mission trip as a fundraiser. That night, we raised $4,000 for the people of Peru, in Peru. And so you talk about money again. Here's somebody who's not a church member, believes in what we are trying to do, didn't necessarily respond to the gospel message that we had brought to him. He is a Christian and he has his faith, and so, but yet, we continually converse with him. He continues to help us with different things in the church when it comes to Mission World, and continues to be an ambassador for Really Living when it comes to Mission World.
Yep. Powerful.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a specific story that will be as powerful as the one that Pastor Francis shared.
Just simple. Keep it simple.
Unfortunately, nothing is coming directly to mind, and I'm sorry, I don't want to cop out and not give that type of story. However, from my position, from what I've witnessed, being hands-on with the ministries that we've done, I have seen, and from, I think, just being hands-on with stuff like the cooking school. I've seen people change the way their lifestyle, the way they eat, the way they see their life, and it's. I think that is life changing, because we come to our school. We do it in such a way that it's not. They come. I'll just explain what we do. So they come. We do have just a brief presentation. Normally, we try to get in someone. So we've recently gotten some doctors, some dentists from the community to assist us and present some stuff specifically on concepts of like New Start, so how we can better live. And after that, they go straight to the kitchen and they start cooking with some assistance from our volunteers. Side by side, they're cooking, and I've seen people's lives change in such a way that, I mean, they drop certain things and they want to change their diet. And I think that just goes with our mission is we want to bring the Adventist message of hope and wholeness to our community. And that wholeness and of changing a lifestyle. Many diseases that are present in humanity are brought on from lifestyle and can actually be reversed by changing the lifestyle. And so I think that that is the one step closer to getting there to know Jesus also, is making changes in our lifestyle. And maybe perhaps later on, there might be other changes, but I've seen that specific program that we've done change people's lives, that they drop a lot of things and they start to incorporate a better lifestyle for them. Only one person comes to the cooking school, the lesson, but they change it within their family. And that's from what I've seen, like that's been really powerful for me.
Awesome. I know that we're out of time. I wonder if I can add a little something to the cooking school. There is a very positive story from that. Our head elder, who works at a cancer center here in Hamilton, has been working there for years, and she has been an evangelistic crusader in her office, and not once has she been able to bring one of her coworkers to the church. Not once. Not to a small group, not to the church, not to anything. Next thing you know, she invites all of her friends, co-workers, to the cooking school. One of them comes.
Mhm.
One of them comes to the cooking school. Check this out. This is how it works.
Mhm.
This person comes to the cooking school. The following cooking school, she tells everybody in the office that they need to go to Really Living because the cooking school is amazing.
Yeah.
The following cooking school, 3 people from her workplace showed up. And she came up to me and she says, all these years you've tried to help me understand that this is how it works, and I've rebelled against you. And now I realize that this is how it works. She didn't say I rebelled against you, but they were more like traditional meetings, 27 nights, let's do this, let's do that. But she never was able to bring any of her coworkers to these meetings. And now 3 of her coworkers, 1 of her coworker is promoting the church to everybody else in the office. She's telling everybody, you got to go to that church. You got to go to it. The things they do are amazing. Had she done that to everybody, everybody would have looked at her and walked away. But now it's somebody else. And so, to me, that's a huge
That's true.
story, right?
Wow.
There's dozens like that, right? So, but we don't have any more time.
Well, we hope that you all are writing a blog somewhere and posting some of these stories up, because these are encouraging not just to those who are on the outside, but those who are thinking about strategically about how they could impact their community around them. And so thank you so much.
Right.
And thank you both for being a part of this discussion today. Really appreciate it, folks. If you want to go check out Really Living Church in Hamilton, it's the website is there, https://realliving.ca. Go there, check it out. These guys are some of the real deal, real great guys to sit down and chat with. They'll take you on a tour, and their heart is sold out for Christ in this ministry, and their church members, as you heard, 80-20. That's usually most churches are 20-80, but they
That's
have
right.
80-20 support from their churches. And so we want to thank you. If you're out there and you can put your hands together, let's celebrate them today and what God is doing in their lives. And we'll continue to pray for them. Next week, Tuesday the 15th, will be our 8th conversation. It will be with, make sure I have this correct, it's with Young Street Mission. Matthew Feely will be our host. And the directors over at Young Street Mission, they have a powerful work that they're doing. They'll be with us next week, Tuesday. You'll hear some exciting things they're doing for the local community there. So thank you so much for being part of our meeting today, our conversation. I hope that you've learned a lot. Those of you who checked it out and those who tuned in, really want to thank you for your comments and suggestions. I don't know, Pastor Sargent, you want to just share with us what's coming up this weekend so people could be aware about what our Urban Missions Convention is going to be about.
It's going to be awesome.
That's right.
It's going to be nice.
Awesome. Awesome weekend for Urban Ministries convention, the 11th to the 13th, and we are certainly looking forward to as many as can possibly. If you have not yet registered, I think there might still be a little bit of time to register for one of the 2 tracks, and do it now before it is late. It's Urban Ministries Convention online. It's online and it's free, and it is at www.adventistontario.org. Please register now, and not to be left out or not to miss out on this very exciting adventure. God bless you, and thanks to Pastors Francis and Duval and Benton Lowe from the Hamilton Church Really Living. God bless you.
And maybe we can put up the flyer just so that everybody could see. Sorry, Benton, you were saying something?
Oh, I was just saying thank you guys for doing this and having these conversations. We grow because we talk. We talk together and people are listening. And I think, when information is shared like this, we're going to grow.
Right.
Definitely.
That's right.
Maybe we could, thank you so much. Maybe we could put up the flyer just for someone to see it if they haven't seen it before. There it is. Right. It's free registration. It's free for anyone who's excited about doing church transformation and community engagement, or if you're thinking about church planting, subjects like establishing missional culture, white church planting, leading change. This is an item that I asked our guests today. Praying and recruiting, community engagement, social justice, partnerships, community building, community partnerships, visioning and core team development, growing the plant through missional outreach, intentional disciple making, culture, preparing to launch, growing missional church groups, church planting in Ontario conference as a larger topic. Our guest presenters will be Ed Schmidt, Dr. Ed Schmidt, and his great team of professors and teachers and instructors, consultants there at the North American Division Evangelism Institute. If any of our pastors went to Andrews University, you're familiar with them because in the Master of Divinity program, many of them were our teachers and professors there. They are very exciting to come through to us and make these presentations so that we could all learn together. So looking forward to seeing you this weekend. It's from the 11th to the 13th. Make sure you go and register. We don't want you to miss out on this great information. Maybe we can close out with prayer, and maybe I could ask Pastor Benton Lowe to offer the closing prayer for us. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah, let's pray, guys. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time that we've had to gather in this fashion, not just the four of us, but all who are listening. Lord, we want our churches to be transformed. We want to be able to do ministry where people's lives in our community will be changed. And Lord, I pray that the things that we've shared will inspire people, will help them to move beyond perhaps what their comfort level is and what they like to do, and move beyond that to be able to serve their community, to serve around them. Lord, it's a lot of work, but Lord, you promise that you're going to equip us and give us what we need. So Lord, let us be willing to receive what you're willing to equip us with, and run with it. I'm excited for this, and I pray for also our convention, the Urban Mission Convention that will be taking place this weekend. Be with the presenters, be with all that will be present. That this will be a time where people will absorb a lot of information and use it for your glory. These things we ask, Lord, in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.